At 14:02 on May 25, 1979, American Airlines Flight 191 began its takeoff roll at Chicago O'Hare. At rotation speed, the entire left engine and its pylon separated from the wing. The flight crew executed their emergency engine out training flawlessly. 31 seconds later, all 273 people on board were dead. The National Transportation Safety Board investigation revealed a chilling truth. The crew was entirely blameless. They adhered to standard engine-out procedures exactly as trained, and in doing so, flew the aircraft directly into an unrecoverable stall. Early commercial aviation relied heavily on rule-of-thumb airspeeds and pilot intuition. Modern flight is governed by FAR Part 25 certification, a rigid mathematical framework that calculates precise constraints for every second of the departure. At the center of this framework sits V1. It is routinely taught and referred to as the takeoff decision speed. The regulations, however, explicitly define V1 as an action speed. The actual cognitive choice to continue or abort a takeoff happens in the briefing room. By the time the V1 call-out echoes in the cockpit, all choices are locked. V1 is merely the physical execution trigger for an already made decision. Surviving a catastrophic failure on the runway does not rely on split-second reflexes. It requires understanding the exact kinematic constraints built into the flight envelope long before the aircraft's brakes are released. This chart plots the chronological performance envelope of a 300-ton aircraft starting its takeoff roll. The x-axis measures airspeed, and the y-axis measures distance and altitude. From brake release, the aircraft accelerates against absolute physical boundaries. The first boundary is VMCG, or minimum control ground. If an engine fails, the asymmetric thrust violently yaws the nose toward the dead engine. VMCG is the absolute aerodynamic floor, where the airspeed generates enough rudder force required to keep the aircraft on the centerline. This value shifts with the atmosphere. At high-density altitudes, the engines produce less thrust. Less thrust means less yaw during a failure, which paradoxically lowers the VMCG threshold. Moving down the runway, we hit ASTA, the accelerate stop distance available. This represents the absolute maximum length of pavement, including the runway and any structural stopway, available to safely abort the takeoff and brake to a halt. Overlapping that is TOTA, the takeoff distance available. This is the runway distance required to lose an engine, continue the acceleration, and safely clear a 35-foot screen height on the remaining thrust. An aircraft cannot legally or physically depart unless its designated speeds fit perfectly within the intersection of these ground constraints. When the required stopping distance perfectly equals the required continuing distance, the runway is optimized. This intersection point is the balanced field V1. It yields the maximum possible takeoff weight for that specific piece of pavement. Dispatchers can manipulate this point. On a wet runway, they bias V1 lower, reducing the energy required to abort. If there is a close-in mountain ahead, they bias V1 higher, forcing the aircraft to gain more speed on the ground to maximize the initial climb. To enforce this physics boundary, operators use the hand-off thrust levers rule. At the V1 callout, the flying pilot removes their hand entirely from the throttles. This physically neutralizes the human instinct to pull power back if a loud noise or vibration occurs. Between 80 knots and V1, the criteria for a rejected takeoff narrow drastically to engine fires, flight control jams, or structural failures. The energy state here is immense, and stopping is at the very limit of the aircraft's brakes. A high-speed abort follows an exact mechanical sequence. Thrust lever slams idle, followed immediately by the speed brake lever raised to full. Deploying speed brakes before engaging reverse thrust is mandatory. The ground spoilers kill lift across the wing, transferring the aircraft's multi-ton weight squarely onto the landing gear to maximize wheel friction. With the weight on the wheels, maximum manual braking and maximum reverse thrust are applied to bleed off the remaining kinetic energy. Human processing time is a luxury the runway does not afford. A single second of cognitive delay at 150 knots burns through an additional 225 meters of pavement. Once the aircraft crosses V1, an abort almost guarantees a high-speed overrun. Once the physics favor flight, taking a burning or damaged engine into the air is safer than attempting to stop. The moment the wheels leave the ground at VLOF, the physics change. The nose wheel steering is gone. Directional control is now entirely aerodynamic, defined by a new lower boundary, VMCA, or Minimum Control Air. To maintain VMACA, certification assumes the pilot banks exactly 5 degrees toward the live engine. This creates a lateral lift vector that fights the asymmetric yaw, significantly reducing the amount of rudder deflection required to fly straight. The crew of American Airlines 191 managed this perfectly, but the engine separation triggered a secondary mechanical failure. As the pylon ripped away, it severed 4 hydraulic lines. Depressurized, the aerodynamic forces pushed the left wing's leading edge slats back into the retracted position. The crew had no warning lights indicating this configuration change. Retracting the slats instantly degraded the left wing's lifting capability, pushing its localized stall speed up to exactly 159 knots. The standard engine out procedure dictated that the crew pitch the nose up to bleed off airspeed until they reached V2, the optimal engine out climb speed. For their weight that day, V2 was calculated at exactly 159 knots. As the BC-10 passed through 159 knots to meet the V2 target, the clean airflow over the left wing violently separated. The localized stall destroyed lift on the left side, while the fully slatted right wing continued to fly normally. The massive asymmetry in lift snapped the 160-ton aircraft into a sheer left roll. At just 300 feet above the ground, recovery was physically impossible. Following this accident, the industry permanently rewrote the doctrine. V2 is a regulatory minimum floor, not a target. If an aircraft loses an engine above V2, the pilot maintains the speed at which the failure occurred. Once airborne and stabilized, an aircraft operating on one engine must satisfy strict minimum climb gradients across 4 distinct performance segments to clear surrounding terrain. The most demanding of these is the second segment. Beginning the moment the landing gear is fully retracted, a twin-engine jet must maintain a net climb gradient of 2.4%. This narrow margin dictates the maximum certified takeoff weight for the entire departure. This phase demands strict discipline regarding the acceleration altitude. Retracting the flaps below this altitude trades lift for speed too early, sacrificing obstacle clearance. Delaying the retraction extends the time the aircraft spends fighting maximum aerodynamic drag. A normal all-engine standard instrument departure requires a minimum climb gradient of 3.3%. A heavy aircraft operating on one engine at 2.4% will mathematically fail to clear the obstacles along that standard path. This graph illustrates the solution. Airports flanked by high terrain publish an engine out SID. This is a pre-calculated lateral escape route designed to thread an impaired, low-climbing aircraft safely through valleys and around peaks. If the assigned ATC vector conflicts with the engine out routing, pilots execute a standby protocol. They immediately turn on to the escape route to protect their clearance, deviating from air traffic control without asking for permission. Below 400 feet, the cockpit operates under a strict sterile rule. There is no checklist execution, there is no troubleshooting. The crew's sole focus is maintaining directional control, holding airspeed, and retracting the gear. Surviving high terrain on a single engine requires total unflinching subordination to the pre-calculated escape geometry over any real-time directives from the ground. Every constraint, gradient, and escape vector we just mapped out is locked into the flight management system during the briefing, 20 minutes before the parking brake is released. Today, the static, paper-based performance manuals that defined early commercial flight have been entirely replaced by electronic flight bags. Utilizing edge computing, modern systems continuously recalculate V-speeds during the taxi. They dynamically ingest minor shifts in wind, temperature, and runway surface friction, adjusting the kinematic boundaries right up to the threshold. Beyond calculating airspeeds, modern flight management is moving towards integrating structural health monitoring directly into the aircraft's performance logic. The NTSB attributed the 1979 disaster to maintenance damage within the engine pylon, a flaw that was invisible to the crew and ignored by their performance math. Today's predictive algorithms use acoustic sensors and strain gauges to verify airframe integrity in real time, ensuring the mechanical state of the wing actually supports the V-speeds displayed on the screens. The pilot who successfully navigates an engine failure at V1 is not making a brilliant, split-second decision under pressure. They are simply executing a mathematical solution that was already solved on the ground.